Hi, I'm Heather Staines. I'm a senior consultant at Delta Think and one of the directors for the Charleston Library Conference. I'm here today with Andrea Cayetano-Jefferson, who spoke at the recent conference in November 2024. Welcome, Andrea. It's great to see you.
Hello, good to see you too.
Yeah, so maybe to start out, for folks who were not in Charleston or weren't able to catch the session, maybe you could introduce yourself briefly and tell us a little bit about where Sweetgrass baskets come from, and we can talk about how you got to making them.
My name is Andrea Cayetano-Jefferson. I am a sixth generation sweetgrass basket sewer from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Sweetgrass baskets, the sewing technique is one of the oldest African art forms still practiced in the United States. I myself am Gullah Geechee, and one of the Gullah Geechee traditions or um, crafts that we still do is sweetgrass basket sewing. Some of the other things are quilting, fishing, sewing, but sweetgrass baskets are definitely unique to the Gullah Geechee culture. And it is one of like I said, the oldest African art form still practiced. So my ancestors have continuously sewn baskets since for the seven generations now.
Yeah, and there's a connection with they were used in rice production, as if I recall correctly from the conference.
Yes. So the baskets you see behind me, most of the open, wider ones are called rice fanner baskets. These baskets were used to separate the rice from the shaft. So you would put the rice in the basket and you shake it. And when the wind came up, the shaft would fly away and you would end up with the rice. Now, our ancestors were brought here to the Charleston Lowcountry area because of their knowledge of rice harvesting. And part of that included making the rice fanner baskets.
Great. That was a new piece of information for me, and I'd probably walked by baskets in the market. I've been going to Charleston almost 20 years, and I just didn't know about the rich history there with the baskets. Now you started out as a really young child. Tell us about how that all got started for you.
Okay, so I don't mind saying my age. I am 45 years old, but I grew up kind of like how my mom grew up. So it we grew up down a dirt road. We grew up like I'm gonna say, I don't know if you know, we grew up priming the pump. Like we played outside all day long. There was no coming in. We built clubhouses and everything down this dirt road. So like this was our community. So once I was about five, my mom, I was born in New York, but my mom came down. She always sewed baskets, and she started working down at the Charleston City Market. So I went down and I saw them, all these ladies making baskets I'd never seen. Of course, I'm from down in Little Dirt Road. I told my aunt I wanted to learn. So my aunt took the time to teach me. So by the time I was 7, 8 years old, I was working down at the family booth at the city market. Now, our family had a basket stand, which are the little huts that you see along Highway 17 in Mount Pleasant. We had one on the corner of Highway 17 and 41. My grandmother's house still sits there. But once you went to the city, there were so many more customers. So from the time I was 8 years old up until 2020, I was working down in the Charleston City Market selling sweetgrass baskets.
Yeah, and so you didn't just like immediately start with like the big baskets, right? Like there's a hierarchy. So tell us how you started out.
No, ma'am, you do not. Like it took, I'm going to say, it took from the time I was at the beginning, you learn with the starter. Um, and you learn how to just make rows around. You just learn to, and while you're doing that, you're learning to how much grass to add in, how to add the new meta, which is palmetto, but we say meta. Gullah basket sewers, it's a word unique to us. We say meta. So you learn how to add your meta in, and you learn how to add your grass in. And in order to learn to turn up a basket, which means go on the sides to complete a full basket, you had to know all of that first, which took a couple of years because, of course, I'm a little girl. I'm still going to school. and you had to show that you were serious about it. There was no cutting corners with my aunt Linda. There was none of that. It was you do it right the first time or you don't do it at all.
Yeah, and I think from a pretty early age, you said you were actually, doing everything and running the stand. I guess folks must have come up and saw a little bit of a girl and thought, oh boy, this is going to be a pushover. I bet you drove a hard bargain.
I did like I knew the rules. I could not take more than $5 off a basket. So I was like, no, because um, my biggest thing was I hate saying this, but I love to eat. So if I took more off, then you are taking out of my lunch money. So I need my lunch money. So it's like, no. Um, and I also knew how much work went into it because it was my mom and my aunts, they had like, most of them had full time jobs. And then once they got off, they'd come in the evening. So it was every evening at my grandmother's house that my aunts would get together and all of my cousins, we would all be together playing. And so I knew that it took all week long. Like, so as a young child, I knew how much work went into it. And of course, going into the fields with them too, I also knew all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I want to talk to you a little bit about getting the materials, but first, when we talked prior to this interview, you mentioned that having that lunch money opened up a new world to you there, but with the variety of food options that were available and the people who are visiting Charleston. Tell us like what that was like for you from down the dirt road into now the world via the lens of Charleston.
Oh my gosh. So definitely, 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 I was exposed to people from all walks of life. From like, I saw my first like Mormon person. Like, it was like things that you only see in, I mean, I'm acting like I'm grew up in the 50s, but it felt like that, like for us. Um, because, we didn't, it was one car. And if you're going, you didn't get to go to the store all the time. And if you did go to the store, sometimes you had to stay in the car. So it was like um, seeing things that you see in the books that you're reading and to actually see it then. Um, it was mind blowing. I'm going to say, like, I say that a lot because I've had so many great experiences that as a little girl from down that dirt road, you never expected for that to happen. Just like doing this conference. Like I went to, we used to go to the, what is it called? We used to call it the Gaillard Auditorium. Like we would go there for concerts and go to see plays when I was a little kid and to be on that stage and to be part of Charleston's history. Um, it's I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's crazy to believe that it's real. But
Yeah. Had you ever heard about the Charleston Library Conference before that
never,
point? Was it a complete surprise?
never, never, never. And all those years working down on the city market, I would see people come through with little tags on their, I would see tags, but it never clicked to me. You would just meet people and, meet names, and I love to talk. So someone probably told me years ago who bought a basket from me, but me with all my run in my mouth, I didn't even remember. But to know that that conference has been going on for so long and so many people come to Charleston, I know that somewhere someone had to, definitely down in the market, someone had to mention it to me or something.
So, you mentioned going out and getting,
Hmm.
materials for the baskets. You've talked about some of the materials that are used, but you said you have equipment you carry in your car in case you just happen to spot some stuff. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of the things that have happened when you're foraging for those materials.
Okay, so the tools that stay in my vehicle are a pair of boots, a knife, and like a sheet or something like that to wrap everything up in to make it easier to bring out of the woods, whatever we find. So we're gonna say South Carolina is the palmetto state. So we use palmetto to wrap the baskets together, but like I said earlier in Gullah basket sowers say Meta. So we say Meta. So cutting Meta out the tree is easy. That's what I use my knife for. Um, Sometimes there's snakes in the trees. Um, So my husband cuts the maple for me. My husband does the cutting in the trees. And then if we are near marsh, so we also use bulrush or
Mm-hmm.
needle rush. And that's what this is here. We use that, and that's in the marsh. So that knife, if we see a patch like this, the tide has gone down enough, and we can walk out to the edge, we'll cut bulrush and sweetgrass, like palmetto or meta in Russia,
Mm-hmm.
we can get all year long. But sweetgrass, we can only harvest kind of towards the end of May to the beginning of August. I'm going to say August 15th because that's when hunting season starts. And most of the sweetgrass is on private property. When we're doing that now, sweetgrass harvesting is the hardest part because it is done in the summer. And it is, when you harvest
Mm-hmm.
sweetgrass, you're literally pulling it out of the ground like you're weeding a garden. And you're doing that. And we would normally start about 5 in the morning because you want to get in the fields just like any other field before the sun comes up. You want to get most of your work done before that summer heat
Mm-hmm.
gets to you. So we're there as soon as we can see, because you don't want to pick up any sticks. You don't want to um, run into anything. So I've seen a rabbit that I thought was something that scared me. Ground bees have attacked my husband and my mom. Never me. I've never got stung by bees, but I have had chiggers before, and lots of
Mm-hmm.
ticks. The ticks and the chiggers are worse in North Carolina. I don't know what it is, but North Carolina is notorious in the fields with the ticks and the red bugs. So we are, well, chiggers. We say red bugs, but we harvest from I'm going to say up to Wilmington, North Carolina, down to about Daytona. So we'll get Maida down in Daytona. And then there's always some longleaf pine needles too that we use. We find a lot of that in Florida too.
Hmm. Well, it's fascinating, and with the materials, since they grow back, it's wonderful to have sustainable resources
Hmm.
that you can work on.
Yes.
Now you told me when we were getting ready for this call that you don't necessarily like long sleeves, that you like to feel free. You put on some sleeves for us today, so I'm so honored. You look beautiful. So I want to talk just a little bit about, we mentioned that you're Gullah Geechee, and at the conference you actually introduced yourself in the Gullah Geechee language. Can I ask you just to do like a mini introduction in that language so that folks who are listening will know what I'm talking about?
Okay. How Hannah Fadu? I glad to see Hannah this morning and talk to y'all come y'all about who we be, that we be Gullah Geechee anointed people. And all I said was, good morning to you all. I'm glad to see you this morning so I can tell you about who we are, Gullah Geechee people.
Great. Now, I know there's been a lot in the news lately. United States, Canada, all around the world, indigenous people, people who have their own languages, being discouraged or worse from using
Mhm.
their languages in the educational setting. You had some experiences like that when you were young.
Yes. So I always start off whenever I do a speech or speak in front of people and let them know I have a fear of public speaking because of this reason. Growing up, and I say and I think a lot because I want to use Gullah words. And I know growing up, we were taught not to. So if you said a word in Gullah, you got in trouble. Like I had to stand on one foot in a trash can um, because of what I was saying. And so I stopped. Like I just didn't raise my hand all through school. I was a straight A student, smart as can be. But it's like you go to school and you're taught to speak a certain way, and then when you come home, you have to speak another way. So I always say, like, we Gullah Geechee people, we are one of the first actors and actresses in the world because we you couldn't take that home and you couldn't take home to school. So you had to find a divide in between. And I told you
Yeah.
the library became my best friend because I could always read. Um, in our library and like in elementary school, they like always had so much fun stuff going on. So like I would just go in there during recess. Or if I would get overwhelmed, I just can I go to the library and I have to help with something, you know? But so the library was my safe haven away from because I am also not only am I Gullah Geechee, but I'm Garifuna. So my dad was from Livingston, Guatemala. He passed away almost 11 years ago. He was from Livingston, Guatemala, and where he's from, the Garifuna people also have their own language. So just like they're exactly like the practices, like the dancing, the cooking, the religion. It's exactly like the Gullah Geechee people a little bit further down and they speak Spanish. So it's we I went last year and I felt like I could have been in old like back in Mount Pleasant back when like in the early 80s. Like I felt like I that's where I was. So I was also teased because of these little eyes and because of my last name. So Cayetano. So that was a way for
Mm-hmm.
me. The
Mm-hmm.
library was my safe haven to get away from being teased a lot. And that's why I think it was easier for me to pick up
Mm-hmm.
sewing sweetgrass baskets because I had friends, but not like that. None of my friends sew baskets. None of them. Like, absolutely. I have one friend now we became friends later on in life. But growing up, it was just me. None of my cousins, there are 23 of us, none of them did it. So I was
Mm-hmm.
friends with older ladies.
So, just to end, I would love it if you would tell us a little bit about a couple of the baskets that are behind you. I've been looking at them this time that you're talking, and I don't know, do you have a favorite, or do you have one back there that might be like the most challenging to make? Any that you just want to talk about briefly to show folks?
The most challenging one I do not have up here behind me. Um, but this one is kind of like a vase, and it was inspired by something that um, Mary Jackson, she's like a famous sweetgrass basket sewer. She made a piece like this that's in our airport, in the Charleston airport. And I was making one and I was like, oh, I think that would look really nice. So that one is in honor of her. But this style right here is my favorite style to make. It's called like a wrap or a bread basket. And my Aunt Linda taught me to make this style. Um, and in our family, you see here, this is longleaf pine needles. The lighter color is grass. All of this is the bulrush or the needle rush that I was saying earlier. And if you can see here, it's wrapped with the maida or the palmetto. So we strip it down and we use a tool called a nail bone. So my ancestors used a nail. My mom's generation used a nail, a 10-penny nail. My grandmother and the generations before her, they used beef bones. So the beef bones would be filed to a point, and that's what was used. Now I have we use spoon handles. And the spoon handle that I have, it's about 25 years old, and that's my favorite, my go-to. My other ones that I have, once um, someone in our family transitions or whatever, I am the one who gets the nail bones because I am the last to sew baskets in the family. So me and my daughter, my mom still sews too, but not as much as she used to. But I am the keeper of the bones,
Mm-hmm.
and I use them. I alternate throughout, and I use them a lot.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that your son is good at making nail bones. Did I?
Yes, my 12-year-old. Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
so
So
it is passing through
he's
you to him.
yes, he's the nail bone maker, and he just learned how to make palmetto roses.
Okay.
So I'm happy for that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Well, those
So I
um
have three children.
yeah, so are any of them gonna take up the torch, do you think? Or they need some time to go out and sow their wild oats, so to speak, and then they'll come back and
Oh well, definitely my middle son. He is the flower child. He's living life like la la la. So we just leave him alone. But he knows how to make palmetto roses. I've and my daughter helps me the most. Without her, I couldn't do half of the stuff, including setting up this camera today. Um, but they all have been in the fields with us, so they do know how to harvest. But my daughter would be the one who knows exactly where to go. So she can drive there. Like she knows what to do. She knows how to dry the grasses, where to store it. Like she she is if she has to run the business today or tomorrow, she can handle it.
that's great. We'll definitely pass along our thanks to her for setting up the camera because without her doing that, we would not be here talking to you
Yes.
today. So it has been a pleasure, as always, to chat with you, and hope to see you at a future Charleston conference.
Sure. I hope to see you too.